Fellows, welcome back to the More Than Average Men podcast. I am your host, Michael Benton, and you are listening or watching to episode 9. All right, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back. I greatly appreciate it. If you've already been tapping in with us, thank you so much for continuing on this journey. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. Thank you so much for supporting and checking us out. This particular episode I wanted to do because I'm seeing a lot of men and obviously even the men that I'm talking to, the experience that they're having is that they're actually crippling themselves when it comes to not being able to ask for help, not being able to extend themselves into a conversation, whether it be with a coach or a therapist or a friend or a loved one or whatever the case may be. They're just not willing to have that conversation. And I wanted to kind of address typically the five main reasons as to why, us men don't seek help, right, and seek advice. And I think one of the debilitating things that's going on with men is that they're suffering in silence. And what that means is that, whatever it is that they have going on, whether it's stress or anxiety or depression or whatever it is that they're dealing with, they're not sharing that. They're not telling everyone, right? And so they're putting up this facade of this image, this identity that everything is okay and they're great and things are, working out and whatever the case may be. But then when they go home and they're by themselves or, whatever that looks like, they're emotional, right? And they're crying and they're stressed and all of these things. They just have all these negative emotions and thoughts going on. And so it's crippling them because I'll tell you from experience, there's been times when I've done that myself, right? And I've lied and said, oh man, everything's great. Everything's good. My, friends or my family would ask me, how are you doing? Oh, it's good. Everything's going great. But then when I'm alone, it's like, life's, life is crap. You know what I mean? And it's not working how I want it to work. And I'm feeling lonely and I'm depressed and all of these things. And so it's super important that we as men, we have to be able to get over this crippling kind of identity that, we're big and bad and strong all the time and we got everything covered and we can do it all and we don't need any help and, we'll make it work. And that's, obviously that's total BS. And some of you guys, that have dealt with that and maybe you're currently dealing with that now where it's like, you're that guy that, doesn't ask for help and you're suffering in silence, bro. And I just want to let you know that I see that. I understand it. And so I wanted to go over again some 5 main reasons as to why we do that. And hopefully this gives you guys a little better insight, maybe into yourself. Maybe it gives you a little better insight into other men that you talk to or that that you kind of get a sense like something's not right, even though they're telling you that everything's okay. You kind of get an understanding. And so maybe this will kind of let you into their world if you haven't dealt with something like this before. And so, and before I move on to reason number 1, I wanted to let you guys know that a lot of these things that we're going to be talking about is I won't go into much detail with each of these because some of this is already exposed in some of the other content and episodes that I put out there, some more in detail than others. But if you feel that there is a particular area in which, you need help on, I'd love to coach you, right? So reach out to me and we can look at coaching in that particular area. Otherwise, you'll be able to get some help or some answers through the content that I would put out there as we move forward. All right. So without further ado, let's get into number 1. So the number 1 reason, or the reason number 1 that men don't ask for help is because their ego gets involved. And if you don't know what the ego is, it's basically a sense of your identity, right? It's just sense of your own self-worth. And I think a lot of men kind of, they stick with this idea that whatever we present to the world, this is what we have to stick with. This is what we're going to portray, and we can't deviate from that, right? So it'd be an example like, where a guy thinks that, he's got this huge bravado, right? He's got this huge ego. He's tough. He's masculine. He's this and he's that. And that's who he is, right? And that's the image that he is going to portray until the end of his day, right? And but he doesn't think that he can retract from that, because if he retracts from that identity, then he kind of loses maybe the confidence, or he kind of loses in his mind the respect that everyone is giving him because of who he's putting out there. When in reality, that's not who he wants to be. That's not who he is. And so I just think a lot of men get stuck in that, hey, whatever I present to the world, I have to stick with that identity. And that's it. I can't backtrack. And that's your ego talking, right? And so, if we all need to get to a point where we can get that ego in check and really be, and really be okay with putting out the true identity of who we are, right? Putting out your true identity. If you're an emotional guy, then be an emotional guy. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be, don't try to be this tough masculine dude on the outside, but then when you get home and you're watching rom-coms and you're tearing up over certain, like, if that's you, that's you. You know what I mean? Like, for those of you that are in this particular situation where you feel that you portrayed a certain identity and you have to stick with that, I think once you realize that you can be authentic and you can be your true self, there's going to be so much more of a release. There's going to be a release within inside you, bro. That's going to be like, and that's going to be like, you ever had that feeling where, like, the weight on your shoulder, you have weight on your shoulders, and then once you kind of relieve that pressure or whatever, you just feel so much more free. You feel so much more alive. You just feel good, right? You feel like the weight of the world's off your shoulders. That's, if you can just portray, bro, who you truly are, your identity, and allow your ego to move aside, it's going to be so much more better for you. So, yeah, if you're the type of person that your ego is always getting in the way, maybe it's time to do some work, bro. It's time to push that aside. Number 2, men don't want to appear weak. I mean, this isn't rocket science. We all kind of knew that, right? Like, especially us men that are listening and watching this, either ourselves have done this or we know other men that have done this as well. But, the idea that we can be vulnerable leaves the door open for us to be taken advantage of, right? It leaves the door open for people to walk all over us, right? It leaves the door for us to be viewed as having woman-like tendencies, right? Like when dudes call other dudes, like, oh, you're a bitch, right? Like, they're referring to them as you're a woman, right? You have woman tendencies, or maybe you're too emotional, right? Or whatever, you're soft, right? Is what they would call most people or most guys. You're soft, which is craziness. But we'll do whatever it takes to not appear weak, especially to our other peers, especially to other men, because we want that respect, right? We may not all be alphas, but we're still men at the end of the day, right? And so, we always want other men to see us as someone who is not to be messed with, is not to be taken advantage of, is not to be appeared as weak, right? When most of the time, guys that push that image of, that bravado, that ego, that toughness, most of the time we know you're the weak ones, right? You're the one, you're putting on a show, right? You're doing too much. It's the guys that they're not putting themselves out there like that. They don't walk into a room and like, okay, I'm the top dog, I'm the wolf. Like who wants it? Because most of the time you don't want that smoke. You know what I mean? So again, it's just it's not that you're appearing weak. It's just that you have feelings and emotions. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So I think that the sooner that you can get beyond the fact that, listen, it's not a thing about being weak, but it's a thing about understanding and having awareness of the situation and who you are, and what you represent and what you can bring in those environments into the table. That's what makes you, that's what makes you a man. So, number 3, we don't want to be judged by others. And again, this goes back to your identity and what kind of the things that you're putting out there and portraying. And, this really speaks to how you care about other people's opinions of you. And when I say other people, it's more so strangers, which is the crazy thing, right? Like, we have people in our lives that we love and that we care about and respect, that we do care what their opinion is of us, right? We do care what they think about us, whether it's your parents or your siblings, or it's maybe a close friend or a colleague, right? We do have a perception that, hey, I do care what they think of me. But when in this time of social media and the internet, there's folks out there that you're trying to put on a facade for that they don't even know you, right? From Adam. You know what I mean? Like you have no idea who they are, what they're about, but yet you're trying to live up to an expectation of someone that you don't know. Right? You're trying to put on this facade, and honestly, man, that it's just draining, right? It's just energetically draining when you're having to portray something that you're not. And so again, that's why I say it goes back to, your ego and your identity, and having, caring about the judgment of others. I mean, that just shows a sign of low self-esteem, right? That shows a sign of not having enough self-love for you to be able to truly identify and put that identity out there that, hey, this is who I am, and I'm okay with that. And if you don't agree with what you see, or if you don't agree with who I am and how I present myself, then that's okay. I don't care. Step aside. You know what I mean? There are going to be people that are for you, and there's always going to be people that are against you, right? And usually the odds are always stacked against you, and that's okay. So, number 4, we think that we can handle anything. And again, this is common knowledge, right? Like, we as men, even for myself, there's been times, when I was married, and we had bought a house, right? I was doing things that I have never done, but I was like, oh, I got this. Like we had a deck in front of our house, and it was kind of like rotten or whatever, and we had to fix it. And I'm like, oh yeah, go to Home Depot and I'll get some lumber and the tools and all this and that. And I'll put it back together. I'll fix it. Man, I had no idea how to make a damn deck, how to rebuild a deck from scratch. I didn't know a clue, but I put on a facade like I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna figure it out. You know what I mean? And it's just that kind of innate thing that we have, or we do as men, where it's just like, we insist on pretending that everything is good and we have everything under control when a lot of the times shit is chaos. We have no idea what we're doing, but we're going to push through. We're going to put on this facade until we are just been called out, and you can blatantly see that, bro, you need some help. like you might want to call a construction person to come, cuz the deck looks tore up. We can't even walk on. This is a hazard, bro. You know what I mean? So I think that we can if we can get beyond this pretentious idea that everything is great, everything is good. Hey, bro, how you doing? Oh man, it's excellent. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But then when you go home, again, you're suffering in silence, and holding all of that negative energy and those thoughts in there, and trying to take on the world alone, bro. Like that, it's costly to your health. It's costly to not only your physical health. It's costly to your mental health. It's costly to your relationships, right? It's costly to every and anything that pertains to you. It's costly, and so we need to be able to move beyond that. Listen, we don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. As a man, I don't have all the answers. I can't. There's certain things that I probably can't do, and so I'm going to save myself time and the energy and the effort and the heartaches and the putting myself in bad situations and circumstances. I'm going to save myself by just asking for help, asking someone else to do something that I can't do, asking someone to teach me what they know that I don't know, right? Asking someone to help me through a certain issue or problem that I'm dealing with or how I'm feeling. I'm going to do that because that's going to save me time and energy. That's going to save my relationships time and energy. That's going to part the seas, right? So I can be able to continue on my journey. I kind of digressed on that one, but I think that's a big one for us too, is we think we can handle everything. And if you really do a close look at yourself, you can't handle everything. But we try, so I do commend us on that. We do give it a good effort. But just let it go, bro. Just let it go. If there's certain things that you can't do, it's okay to ask for help, man. And last but not least, number 5, which is we don't want to face the truth about ourselves. And I think this is a big one, because I think a lot of us, we try to hide from who we truly are. We try to hide from, what we're actually about. And I'm here to tell you that we need other people to learn from. We need other people to educate us. We need other people to encourage us. We need other people to challenge us, to care for us, right? To support us at times, right? Because we all need support. We all need people. We all need relationships. By default in our who we are just as a human race and in our DNA, we have to have relationships. And to shy away from that is you're just doing yourself a disservice. Also, to admit to ourselves that we are susceptible to vulnerability. Like that's just what it is. We're susceptible to being vulnerable at times, and a lot of us try to hide that. Again, all this stuff goes back to full circle because you don't want to appear weak in front of other people, or you don't want people to see you outside of kind of the identity that you've portrayed for yourself, and so again, we try to hide from our own selves, and again, that brings up a lot of stress and depression and anxiety and just all of these issues. And at some point, bro, sooner or later, mark my words, it's going to come back to haunt you, right? Because at some point your cup is going to be overfilled, and once you run out of space mentally, or you're feeling physically drained, it's going to come out. And whether that comes out in the form of an emotional outburst in public, or with your significant other or friends, or whatever the case may be, or whether that comes out in you lashing out at those that you love, or at work, or again, whatever the case may be, or you wanting to take things a little bit more extreme and further, and maybe you look at potential suicide thoughts and things of that nature. Like, it's going to come out because you can only take so much. We as men can only take so much. And it's sad. It's sad to see your fellow man hurting, and going through those things that they go through in their lives or in our lives, and not being willing to ask for the help and to seek advice, seek counsel. So it's imperative that we address these issues, because as I mentioned before in the last episode, man, we're super valuable. Each and every one of you that are listening, and that those of you that are watching, that you're out there, we're all very valuable. We all have something to bring to the table, and no man down. You know what I mean? And so, so again, if you know someone, or if this is yourself, it's okay, bro. Ask for help. That's what we're here for. You know what I mean? I do want to ask you guys, have you guys, so out of the 5 that we talked about, have you noticed that there's a common theme? I've touched on this already, but there's a common theme with all of these. And for a lot of men who haven't done the work on themselves, this is the common theme, right? And it's your perception of what other people think and feel about you is greater than the belief you have about yourself. I'm going to say that again. Your perception of what other people think and feel about you is greater than the belief you have about yourself. I want you guys to really take that in, really understand that. Because again, you're allowing others, you're allowing outside influences to dictate who you are, who you're supposed to be, what's supposed to be important to you, how you're supposed to act, what you're supposed to say. Instead of looking inward and believing, this is who I am, this is my values, these are my morals, this is what I believe in. Right? This is my identity. This is who I am. And so a lot of you guys, it's time to go to work. It's time to get to work on yourself. Especially if you guys that are wanting to, better yourselves, and not only just for you, but for family members and your kids, and you want to be a direct representation of what good looks like. You want to be a direct representation of what's possible. Then it's time to get to work, and the first place that you want to look is inward, right? What do I need to change? Who do I need to become? Where am I going? What am I striving for? And I think that the path to getting to where it is that you're trying to go, you're going to have to ask for help at some point. You're going to have to ask for help, right? I mean, there's numerous examples that I could give you of people that needed help in order to get to where they're going, right? I don't need to give you any examples, but I mean, you can look at sports players, right? They all have coaches, they all have trainers, right? LeBron, one of the best basketball players in NBA history, got coaches, got trainers, nutritionists, all these stuff, right? And LeBron's a basketball player. He's not a chef. I mean, he might do that on the side. I have no idea, but I'm assuming, right? He's got a chef cooking him his meals that he needs. Make sure that he's got the proteins and the macros and all that stuff that he needs to have in order to be optimal for the games in the season, right? Like, we have to ask for help. When I was setting up this podcast, I didn't know anything about setting up a podcast. I just knew I wanted to set up a podcast, but I went out and I asked people who already had a podcast. Hey, bro, how do you do that? What kind of camera do I need? What kind of products do I need? What kind of editing software do I need? Cables and lighting and microphone. How do I do this? Going on YouTube, looking at how to set up a podcast, right? You're seeking help. You know, when I was getting into self-development, I reached out and I got a coach. You know, I hired a life coach, and I worked with her for 6 months. And you know, I needed help. I knew I had an idea, an overview of kind of what I wanted out of life, but I didn't really know how to get started. I didn't really know the direction. And more importantly, there were things that I knew I needed to work on, that I needed to change in order to start to gravitate towards that path. And I knew I couldn't do it myself. I could only get so far, right? I started in personal development. I started reading books and listening to podcasts and things of that nature. But that only took me so far before I was like, okay, there's some deeper things I got to work on. I need to learn how to do these things, or I need this, I need that. Who do I go to? Who do I seek out? Who do I ask? And I'm here to tell you that doesn't make me weak. I'm stronger because of it. I'm strong in the sense of even having the awareness to ask for help, right? And so you can be that same thing. So here's my overall message. My overall message is it's okay to ask for help, right? And it reinforces your awareness that you don't have all the answers, that you can't do everything by yourself, and that at some point you're going to need help in order to progress in life. Essentially what it boils down to. So, and I think another thing to note too is that if you have trouble asking for help, then you need to recognize that there's a bigger issue at hand that you must deal with. If it's hard for you to ask for help, then there's a bigger issue, man, right? And it's relating back to your identity, back to your ego, whatever thoughts or feelings that you have around asking for help, like that needs to be addressed before you're able to really fully change yourself. So I really hope that resonated with you guys, and you guys took some golden nuggets out of there, you know. And if you guys have questions, as I mentioned before, I'd love to answer any of your questions or comments that you might have, or circumstances that you're dealing with that you want me to address on the next episode. So you can go ahead and email me at bentoncoaching@gmail.com, and I will answer your question on one of the upcoming episodes. And as always, man, I love the support. So please, wherever you're watching or listening, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can keep this podcast going, and we can keep supporting us men to be better and to do more in our lives, and really to take control of the life that we want to live, and to pursue that. So again, without further ado, man, I appreciate it. And as I always say, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, fellas.